What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Evening Alpha. I am your incredibly beautiful host, Todd Wanish, 26-year veteran of the comic and animation field, Web3, startups, the list goes on, and that's why I'm, overweight and I don't sleep much, but that's okay. Anyway, tonight I am very excited. There's a few things that I enjoy in the Web3 space. I really enjoy founders who are professional, who work hard, who actually create real things. And by real things, I mean something beyond the simple PFP image, right? And so when I find a project that has pretty much everything, just ticks all the boxes, we're talking fantastic artwork. They consider their community co-creators. They're talking about land development. They're talking about bringing in other creators and empowering their community. When they also bring in comics, because I mean, come on, right? When they bring in comics, and when the people who are doing those comics are also professionals in their own right and have a history backing them, they have that social proof. I'm hugely attracted to that. So with that said, I am excited to talk tonight to Trippyogi, with MetaTravelers. What's up, Trippyogi? How you doing, brother?
Yo, Todd, thanks for having me, and thanks for the kind words. Honestly, I think our projects share a lot in common, right? Very rooted in deep lore, creativity, and empowering the community. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So tell me about MetaTravelers, dude.
Yeah, so co-founder Marco and myself, we started working together a couple years ago doing installations cross-media. So we'd combine laser lighting with video projection and stage setups and all of this to create these kind of like immersive installations. And this was right around the time that COVID kind of hit. And so, we decided, hey, we'll probably put the IRL events on hold. And I had been getting into the Metaverse for a bit at that point. And this was, I think, early 2020, right? And so I first got into NFTs in 2019. I started minting out on Maker's Place and was just like fascinated by the possibilities that digital ownership kind of opened up, right? And so, we started building out the installations in the Metaverse. And one thing led to another, and we thought, well, hey, why don't we start developing our own IP and our own kind of world around this concept of digital avatar embodiment, rich lore, and kind of these playable experiences that unlock further IP and development as you kind of progress throughout it. So, yeah, we started with our avatar collection, which is 7,777 digital avatars. They're not just PFPs, they are full 3D, full rigged. They come with facial rigging, so you can use them on web streams or like a virtual webcam. You can plug them into different metaverse worlds and run around in them. We're building out some playable experiences on LeapN platform and some other Unreal Engine-based platforms. And yeah, there's a whole mix of things that we're kind of like diving into and figuring out new fun ways to explore, not only like the lore, but the way that people can experience it, right? One example is our NFT comics, where, if you're a holder, you have a chance to get airdropped the comic. And it's not just like an image, right? So, we took the comics, made a really nice kind of like placard style cover for them. You can go on the website and log in with your MetaMask, and now you actually unlock those pages in the comic, right?
That's cool.
So it's like almost this gamified collectible experience where, there's just so many fun ways to play, right? And I'm sure you've come across, similar types of like joyful experiences as you're developing in this space.
Yeah. You said something that was really interesting. So it's such a, one of the things that I'm fascinated by when I talk to entrepreneurs and founders, and especially in Web3, is that I think one of the things that separates, I'll just say that the thing that separates entrepreneurs into buckets, right, is that there's no harm, no foul, there's no penalty, but there are certain entrepreneurs who are very young, who come in, who get attracted to Web3 for the same reasons that we're attracted to Web3, right? And then they come in and it's their very first attempt at entrepreneurship, right? It's their very, I mean, like brand new. And so their learning curve is great, right? Whereas other people can come in who maybe had startups in Web 2.0 or had other businesses, like in your case, you guys are doing lighting shows and stuff. Like that's a lot of work. And so you already have at least some conditioning for the grind that it takes to produce some kind of outcome, right? So even if it's not a one-to-one, even if it's not like apples to apples, there's still a recognition of the amount of work that it takes or could take. And you know within yourself and your team, because you've done it before, like you look at the task and say, I can do that, right? And it comes from experience of having done it for in other areas. And so you said something that kind of like stuck out of my head, and that is when you went from doing lighting shows for concerts and some pretty big names, right? Like these are not small events, right?
Yeah. So, yep.
Yeah, but then when you jumped into Web3, you were actually doing. It sounded like it was like almost like the only thing that was really changing was the place, right? Were you doing the same kind of thing for like lighting, but moving a little bit into Web3? Like what was that first step? Because I can't remember the word you said, but you said almost like you were setting stages up inside of Web3, and there was like an intermediate step, right?
Yeah. And so, we pivoted from the IRL events, because Marco has, over a decade of experience with, numerous big name acts, putting on, really awesome production level experiences, right? And myself is more on the technical side and years of enterprise coding and, art, digital art and all of that stuff, right? So basically pivoted towards building out our plot in Decentraland as kind of like the first prototype for where we would hold events and gatherings, right? And we did one, I think it was either in May or June. It might have been in June of last year, like right after Bored Apes kind of minted out. And we hosted this like Bored Apes installation, had like little custom viewers where you can click through and see them, and people submitted all their apes and we just like plastered the walls with them. And, it was really fun, and I think the core of it is just that human connection, right? And like, how can we amplify experience through, the different tiers, whether it's like the IP or the installations or the technology, it's all ways to kind of like amplify our experience. So I think that kind of distills one of the core essences of what we're trying to do.
But see, that's so fascinating because I think you did that. This is in a lot of ways it's what I did as well, right? Like, and just in terms of career. And that is like, people, the other thing when I'm advising young entrepreneurs or founders, like there's a misconception out there, even if it's consciously they understand how it works, subconsciously there's a feeling that, like an emotional feeling that success or direction is linear, meaning that my target is over here, I should be able to pull the bow back, fire an arrow, and hit the bullseye, right?
Yeah.
And anything that deviates from that bullseye is a failure, right? I mean, we have terms for it, pivot and all kinds of stuff. But in the mind of an entrepreneur, especially when you're younger, you have a tendency to think I fucked up or I missed it or I'm not as good as I thought. There's a lot of self-doubt that comes with that. And when the reality is, of course, is that it's not necessarily that there is one target and you have to fire a perfect shot. Although some people do, right? There are outliers out there, of course. But in reality, there's a number of different targets out there. They're all kind of the same target, right? And when you fire that arrow, it's kind of like this crazy squiggly line that goes in any direction. And as long as it hits any target, you're good, right? Success isn't a straight line. It's like crazy. It's like a tied knot thing, and then it goes into the direction you eventually kind of want it to go in. And I think what you guys are doing, at least with this first step, from a business where you're creating these light shows and you have this established service that you're creating and doing, and then you move into Web3, and you're not just like going from like your shows to like something completely outside of the realm of your knowledge base. You're just going 1 degree over, right?
Yeah.
You're taking the skill sets you already have and you're adding a couple of blocks to it and saying, okay, cool, we're going to create this thing that's has a lot of what we already know. We're going to create a show, right? But we're gonna maybe add just a nuance to it, which is that it's going to be in Decentraland or Metaverse or whatever, and we're going to bring in all those people. So it's the same but different. And then once you do that and you have confidence with it, you can kind of move forward and actually change it some more, right?
Yeah, and it's like always an iterative process, right? And so you mentioned kind of like young entrepreneurs and the idea of success. Well, you really can't innovate without breaking stuff and piecing it back together in new ways, right? And so, it's like, we kind of, things were broken because of COVID, and it kind of broke the status quo of where we were, where the world was, right? And so, well, what can we do, with our network, with our talents, with our desires, right? And transpose these experiences to like a different medium. And so, I think it really aligned well with blockchain and the whole culture. I had, up until that point too, I had been throwing Metaverse events with Token Smart Community and the WIP meetup, and they were doing these weekly meetups where people would meet in CryptoVoxels, and you'd see like hundreds of avatars just like floating around, right? And they didn't even have like, not all of them even had wearables at that time, right? They were just like the base avatars, but like just seeing people moving around through this like voxelized gallery, looking at people's art, right? And we'd do like gallery shows or attend people's art drops, right? Someone would do like a super rare drop, and then they'd do like a gallery show of like all their favorite artists, and they'd come and they'd have all the artists speak as the group kind of like migrated from piece to piece, right? And no one at that time was going outside, right? Like everything was locked down. So, they were like throttling the grocery stores. So there's like no human connection at this point, right? And so to be able to experience that on like the global level and connect with people on like a deeper level when, there really wasn't anything else, to me, that was kind of like the shining light that, the hope of the metaverse can offer, right? Those types of connections that are, just like cryptos, borderless, permissionless, anyone can participate, anyone can own a piece of it. And, I think I was talking to, your production assistant who, they just joined the team because they were passionate and they just wanted to get in there. And it's like that, those are the opportunities that I think like really, really excite us, all of us.
Right. Yeah, it really is an incredible thing to witness. It's going so far beyond social, quote unquote, social media, right? To where it's moving into an actual living mode, right?
Yeah.
Like we already live online anyway. But now it's moving beyond like that app you'd log on to on your lunch break and after work, and actually like this is where I'm choosing to spend my time because that's where my friends are, right? And I think that's it's actually fulfilling the promise of what social media was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you can meet all these new people and we're gonna hang out and you can look, you have so many friends, right? And what it turned out to be was something else. Whereas with Web3, it's already, even at this nascent stage, like it's already so far beyond what the traditional big tech companies could have ever done. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why you see everybody kind of trying to like jump into it, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of business reasons, new social graph, all that kind of stuff. But there really is a power and a strength to the community ties that can be formed through Web3, through Metaverse, through communities like Discord communities and NFT projects. You're kind of witnessing the potential of where things could go, You know what I mean? If they're nurtured properly. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, we're it's still a very early stage for all of this, and I think there's so many people that came in because of NFTs this round that there might be some that don't come back for another couple of years just because of what happened with the markets, right? Mm-hmm. But the people, I have a lot of friends who are around since 2017, 2018, right? Like the punks, the kitties, like all that stuff, and like the sentiment back then was so kind of like grassroots, and I think that's what excites me about what's happening right now too, is we're going to get back to that where there aren't going to be those like crazy 100x opportunities, right? So you're not bringing in the people who are looking to extract those opportunities, right?
Right.
Like the people who we have are the builders and the people who are the ones who kind of see the potential, the human potential that this could unlock.
100%, man. Yeah. So you did this event thing and kind of cut your teeth on it and had success there and kind of saw the potential. What was the spark from that to MetaTravelers?
Yeah, so we didn't know exactly what the end result would be when we started building those events. We thought, we have this plot of land, we could do meetups, we could do launch pads, we can do collab art galleries, we can just have it be a space, it could be a shop or whatever. But we just started kind of like building and seeing what happens, right? And then I think it was around the time, like I said, we did the apes exhibit, and we were thinking, well, if we were going to do some type of like avatar collection, what would we do and how would we do it differently, right? And so to me, with my background in 3D and motion design, the obvious answer was do some type of like 3D avatar collection, right? And so I had done 3D avatars, knew what it took to kind of like create these high quality renders, and some familiarity with like the game asset pipeline. So taking all of that together and just coming up with what turned out to be like probably the most challenging route at that point, but very, very fulfilling. So yeah, we set up to do 3D avatars for the metaverse, and this kind of goes hand in hand with our kind of like interest in the metaverse leading up to that, right? And so we had originally set out to do 3 separate guilds under one collection, and they're all going to be completely different. And so the moment we started entering production mode, obviously we saw, okay, like that is probably more like a 2-year project if we're going to do like 3 full lines of characters, right? And so yeah, a lot of learning lessons on the pipeline, on the artwork, on the technical side, and so yeah, it's been quite the journey. And so now we're kind of like full production mode on the second guild, and yeah, it's going to have more fun new features, and I think also just like a new set of experiences that we're able to launch it with, just so it's something that it's not just trying to build experiences to support the collection. It's like experience first, and then how do we drop like really high quality assets in there, not just in ours but across other worlds too.
When you were setting up this first launch, and I'm smiling because this is one of those founder questions, like how long did you think it was going to take, and how long did it actually take? Because for us, we thought originally, so we started building Adult Fantasy in March of last year, and we thought we were going to have a launch in June, and we ended up launching in December.
Yeah.
We were just grinding the whole way. So what was your? I mean, it may be the same thing, but what was your original estimate, and when did it actually take?
Yeah, so a similar scenario. We started out like brainstorming, I think loosely in April, but we didn't start actually kind of like putting things on paper May, I think. So May was like when production started, and we were targeting, I think, September for a launch with 3 guilds, right? We got, I think a month in, and we're like, okay, there's no way we're doing 3 guilds. This is going to have to be 3 separate collections. And we're just going to launch 1 guild by September. right? And then another month passed. We're like, there's no way we're getting this out the door by September. So, I think we ended up launching like late November, but that's also after cutting scope, by 67%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard. It's if you're doing it for the first time and you're doing something that you haven't seen done before, it's like that's expected. And I've seen it in software too, right? Like, I guess the one of the challenges is with the NFTs. For the most part, once it's out there, it's immutable. Like you can't necessarily change it unless you go with a upgradable contract, right? So you have to spend that extra time making sure everything's perfect, because you can't fix it. You can't go back and fix it, right?
Right.
So yeah, lots of lessons learned. Scoping was a huge one.
Scoping is a huge one. Yeah. I think it's interesting too. Like, one of the things that I also like to try to convey to people is the difference between perception and reality across different types of projects. Because we've entered a phase where, you can go on YouTube and find a video of someone, reviewing some open source GitHub, PFP generator project. Or now there's even apps where you can just do it. And
oh, wow.
Here's a YouTube video on how to copy paste a smart contract, change these. I've literally looked at them where they're just like, I don't even know what this is, but if you just change this, it works. You're like, oh man, okay. And so we've entered this. It's good in that we've entered this time where literally anybody can make a project, right? And you don't even have to do that anymore. You can go to Manifold. There's a ton of different places you can go now to get contracts, to generate avatars. With that said, the downside of that is that you get the sameness that we see, right? The PFP, the profile picture, I don't know why animals are such a big thing. I kind of blame Bored Ape for that, but like, it's not their fault, but everyone got so inspired that all of a sudden it's like the entire zoo PFP collection coming to 2022, and when you're when you're as a founder and an entrepreneur and you're launching a project and you're taking a different path where you have a large vision and you say, this is all the stuff that we could possibly do. This is where we'd like to go. You're turning off the easy path, right? We both know that, with what we know now, we could both do a PFP project in maybe 4 weeks if we were like coasting, right?
Yeah.
Compared to what we're doing with our own projects. So like, in your mind, what are the differences between those two types of things beyond just like the stock contract or the PFP? Like, what are some of the challenges that you guys faced with MetaTravelers that I think that people should know about? Like, what is it that makes that going that original path different from just stock?
Yeah, I mean, I think just the simple fact that there is no blueprint, right? You have to create the blueprint, and so there's a difference between, right, like building something that you bought from IKEA that has like the instructions laid out versus being the person that designs that thing, that you buy in IKEA, right? And so it's harder, but to me it's rewarding because, and I know, for the team too, it's like bringing something to life that didn't exist before or couldn't have otherwise existed before. I think that just brings a certain level of fulfillment where, you're pushing yourself. You're expanding not only your mind, but your tool set and also the team, right? So there's just like so many components at play. So, I think what is valuable in like the open source code and the accessibility is great because it gets people in the door and they can see, how easy this is, right? And then from there, I think it's up to the market to decide whether or not, something takes off, right? And so, I think, one of those challenges too that people don't always talk about as founders is, just like staying focused on like the core vision, right? Because it is very easy to see all these projects, what feels like overnight success. And it's like, well, why am I over here grinding, like 16 hours a day on this like 3D model to do a render when, we could just kind of like fork a contract and make it our own or whatever, right? So yeah, I think that's one of the challenges too. But right, the people who can, have strong conviction over long periods of time, eventually are the ones like those are the only ones that'll be here in a couple years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that one thing that we haven't seen yet, because we haven't had a bear market since PFPs took off, is just like who is actually going to be like building long term like they said they would, right? And so
that's
like
true.
Yuga Labs for sure will be around, right? They have not only the funds, but they have like a proven track record. Will some of these other forked contracts or spin-offs that they have high mimetic value where they've really taken off, but I think it's up to the market and for the time to tell to see like where all that kind of stuff heads to.
Yeah, I think that's pretty. I think you're dead on. Really quick, let's hop in the chat and see.
Sure, yeah.
We got some good people here tonight. So we got Rageous. What's up, Rageous? Welcome. Hype, yo, welcome. Willie D, Summoner in the house. What's up, Willie D?
Nice.
Yes, indeed. Mitch, welcome. Let's go. Excited for this.
Mitch.
Welcome. We got Mark Ross Machad.
Yeah.
Trippy. What's up, Trippy?
What's up, Marius? How you doing? Yeah, the squad's out.
That's right. Bad Kitty. Hey, everyone. Oh, we got War Horseman. Oh, that's a dope name. War Horseman. What's up? Welcome. Prince Exuzu. What's up? Hey, everyone. Welcome. So good to see you guys. Mitch says, this is a great point. I like the framing. 2 steps forward, 1.75 back is how I roll. It's true. A lot of times it's true. It always feels like that, right? But as long as you're moving forward in the right direction or some direction, you're gonna eventually get to where you're going.
Yeah, you never know where, and like you said, it doesn't have to be linear. You never know where the breakthrough is, right? It could always be around the corner.
If you had told me, I mean, I think it's such a strong point to make too. Like there is nobody on this call or nobody watching this video in the Web3 space or thinking about getting into the Web3 space where 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if you would have said that, you would be doing what you're doing, there's no way you couldn't have even pictured it, right? It's not even understandable. So, you have to I think your job really is to roll up experiences. You know what I mean? Roll up relevant experiences and tools and skill sets so that when opportunity comes, you can just kind of like roll them up into a ball and kind of push into it more,
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see. Jinkerin, what's up? What I miss? Welcome. You're not missing anything. J-Raw, what's up, J-Raw? Welcome. He says, what's up, everyone? My gosh, my apartment is an oven so hot.
Oh, yeah. It's that time of year.
It is. But, for J-Raw, it's not really his apartment that's hot. It's just him. Mitch says, well, we're chilling here, so that should help. That's right. Jason Underwood, welcome. Finally back from work.
Nice.
Welcome, everybody. Let's see. We got, oh, man, the chat is on fire tonight.
See Marco in the house.
We got Marco.
Ashikar. Yeah.
Ashikar, what's up? Welcome. And we're saying hi, and we're doing this. Let's see. Life in the Seam, loving the stream. Thanks heaps for having Trippy on your show. Of course, man. We're here to focus on like fantastic projects, and MetaTravelers and Trippy certainly qualify, 100%. Stuart, thanks for coming out, everyone. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, everybody. So I got another question for you, man. And this is something that I'm always curious about, just from a personal standpoint. So you're building your project, and you've taken a stand, kind of planted a flag, and said, "Okay, cool. We're not going to do the regular PFP project. We're not going to do the funny animal pictures with the red rubber nose. We're actually going to create something much larger." How did you go about the marketing process of launching a project? Because it is, and this is something, again, from a perspective of someone who's launched projects now, like it is fundamentally different. Launching an NFT project is fundamentally different than anything else I've ever launched. And I've launched dozens of projects, like across multiple mediums, genres, you name it. I've done a lot in animation, comics, apparel, like toys, like, you know, I've done a lot of things. And it was so different. And I came in having a background in digital marketing, understanding how to build an audience, and made the mistake of thinking that it was going to be what it had been, right? Because it's digital. And the minute I realized that it was primarily Twitter and Discord, all that went out the window, because that is not where marketing and advertising heads, if you know what I mean. So I'm curious as to how did you handle that challenge of getting the word out for the project?
Yeah, marketing in Web3 is a totally different beast, and you know there's so many different ways to go about it. You know, for us, it was a combination of kind of like the Metaverse events and the weekly events, right, drawing people in. Also, kind of like, so we were at that particular time in the cycle where, you know, Steam was really picking up for Web3 and NFT projects, right? So really harnessing that in whatever way we could with, you know, whether it's like the whitelists or games. We did like puzzles in the Discord, which I had actually never seen before. You know, this is one example where you had to like unlock different channels, and it's like once you unlocked one channel, it took you out of the other channel, so you couldn't kind of like reference pieces from before. And
oh, cool.
You know, just this like intricate kind of like, this interactive cool Discord puzzle. Yeah, so we did puzzles in Decentraland, meetups, pretty much just like all kinds of different points for people to get involved with the community, potentially secure a whitelist, right, and get on that mint, right? And so a lot of it was very much kind of like community based and incentive based, right? So that's obviously one of the more common models, but that one I think now is like you've seen that get played out a little bit, you know, over the past few months, right?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, going in the next one, we're definitely crafting a much more unique approach. Like another thing we did before too was the like working with kind of like YouTube accounts and stuff who promote, you know, the metaverse or NFTs and things like that, right? And so there was some good, some bad that came out from that, right? Like one on the good side, obviously, very much got the hype we needed to secure a sellout and, you know, a successful mint. But on the flip side, there was also kind of like the flipper mentality that some of those eyes on the project brought, right? And so, you know, it's like when a bunch of people come in and then just like exit and move on to the next thing, right? That's not necessarily community or like that's hard to build something long term around, right? And you know, everyone had, I think, like that type of target audience, you know, definitely has a lot of value in that they do create kind of like liquidity from a, you know, an economic perspective as far as the collection goes. But we've realized, you know, that like, well, we are building over a longer period of time, right? And so what can we do with that, and how can we use that to kind of like set us apart? And so, you know, moving into the next phase, really just getting more into like what types of experiences that we can deliver, how can we intertwine these in like more unique ways to engage the community. Really it's a lot of experimentation, exploring, also, you know, coming up with really cool content, because like what we are providing users with and the community with is these avatars so that they can make their own content, right? So like you said, building the tools, building the skills up for the community, and just making fun ways for them to kind of like cross promote the project while also, you know, being a part of it. So
yeah, I think you said something really interesting to me, which is that, you know, there's actually, we find this with a lot of the projects that we talk to here on Evening Alpha, because most, if not all, the projects that we host tend to be thinking long term, right? These are genuinely like long-term thinking people and long-term thinking projects. And one of the things that they find is that, these projects are not really built for flippers, right? I can give you our case in point, which is, we invented a technology that de-ages NFTs over time. So we took a page out of memorabilia and collectibles. So if you've ever seen a slabbed comic or a slabbed any kind of slabbed graded conditioned piece, right? We invented the technology and patented it for NFTs. And so
different minting grades and stuff like that.
And it's 100% generative. It's actually full on AI based. So basically at mint, everybody's comic or card is degraded to some degree, and they're all completely different. So it can be the same comic, but you can have 10,000 different pieces, right? But for our first launch, what we did is we basically we launched it as a real-time dynamic NFT, meaning that everyone at mint started at a 0.05 or a 0.5 grade, which is super poor, right? It's like everyone's card, NFT card, their character card was like beat up and wrinkled and shredded on the edges, and it just looked like crap, which is part of the sense of humor of what we do anyway. And then the algorithm on the back end would essentially roll dice every day and decide if it de-aged, if the grade improved, and if it improved, what part would actually improve, meaning the centering, the edges, the surface, or the corners, right? So every day you could go to, even now you can go into the OpenSea page or wherever you go, and you can see green dots or lit up pieces of what's changed, and then the actual NFT is a completely three-dimensional object. Now, the thing that was interesting about that is that we decided to have the runway for this be 4 years. So it doesn't reach its end grade for 4 years. So it's like the world's slowest marathon, right? Everyone starts at the same point, but right all of a sudden they're starting to kind of separate across a collection. And we screamed from the rooftops about not being for flippers, really as a way, just because it was still early, really as a way to protect flippers, being like, look, we don't want anyone to lose their shirt. If you're thinking about flipping this, it's probably not, like, we're building something that won't have its finished product for 4 years. So you probably don't want to buy it if your career, if that's your job to flip. Nothing against flippers, everyone's welcome, but you probably don't want this. Or if you are a flipper and you want to buy it, you should at least know that it's probably not going to be flip bait. You know what I mean? And I think that actually can be a challenge for our types of projects where you have a longer term vision, where you're like, hey, this thing is going to take a while.
It's especially challenging during that time, right? I think like Q3, Q4 of last year, like a majority of the people were looking for the quick profit. So when when there is a project that is launching NFTs that are more like longer time horizon and building, like these bigger pieces that kind of evolve over time, right? The patience isn't necessarily there. And also, like, there's just so many things that are grabbing people's attention, right?
Yeah, 100%. Jason Underwood says marketing, and then he says, what would you do differently?
I think let's see, I'm trying to think what one thing, and I think I touched on this earlier, is when we are partnering with someone to help co-market, make sure that that person in their community, shares the values that we share. And, it's actually something that, they would love and that they would want their community to like learn about on like a deeper level, as opposed to just like partnering with someone's like blasts the project, sends a bunch of people our way, but they might not necessarily even care, if they see it. So I think like connecting more with like-minded communities slash individuals who are going to help co-market it. That would probably be the big thing. Also, I think just ongoing, make it something where, and it's like some might call it marketing, but others might just call it content creation, and just putting out really awesome either pieces of art or pieces of like animations or different things, and showcasing like really what the project is all about, right? Because this was another challenge we had for so long, was because we were doing so many different things, right? We had the motion comic, we had the comic NFT, we had the metaverse stuff, we had the playable experiences, the avatars, Genesis Stone, all this stuff, but like we have yet to kind of like encapsulate it all and show all of it to the people, right? And so I think being able to do that is definitely something we would do differently as well.
Yeah, it's not easy, right? You find that like we're actually so we're getting ready. We're going to do a free mint drop coming up in like the next week.
Nice.
And the initial thought is like, well, it should be easier because it's a free mint. And it's totally not, right? Like you still find yourself like when you're writing the copy for like trying to explain how everything fits together, it's like paragraphs, and it's such a challenge you want to be as crystal clear as possible and hopefully be as direct as possible in your writing and your crafting of like, okay, here's what this is, here's how it fits into the broader universe. But then you find yourself having to explain for new people what those other pieces are. It is a challenge. I really do.
Yeah.
I think it's not easy.
Yeah, for sure. And
go for it.
I was going to say, like my major, I guess, area of focus, I'm not like a marketing expert, right? And so for us too, it's like learning to lean on our team members and trust those who do have that background, bring in the right people who can help kind of like co-craft this narrative and help present exactly what it is we are trying to show the community, right? So yeah, there's a lot to it.
So another thing that fascinates me about your project is that every NFT project under the sun seems to nowadays have a comic book as a roadmap item, right? Which I find fascinating as a longtime comic nerd and someone that appreciates it and someone that does it, right? But you guys did something a little different, which is first you worked on it as a motion comic, which I find interesting. But I think more important or more fascinating to me is that the people that you got, the guys that you got to do it, you got Andy Lanning and Anthony Williams, and those guys are really well known. Like they're basically legends in the space. So I'm curious, like how did that come about? Like how did you get hooked up with them, and how did that comic kind of take shape?
Yeah, I mean, first off, shout out to Andy and Ant. Like they're awesome, right? Not just, I mean, comic artists and writers, but like just awesome people. When we hop on the calls with them, just like super bright and beaming. Like we always end on like positive notes, and so it's cool to be able to collaborate with that type of energy. So this traces back to, I think it was through a mutual friend that Marco had. We had some conversations with Liam Sharp. Are you familiar with Liam Sharp?
Oh yeah, Liam's awesome.
Yeah, so we were talking to Liam, and he was kind of interested in NFTs, but he also just launched his art books and all of that stuff. So he'd been heads down working on that. Couldn't really commit to anything. And so as we started developing the MetaTravelers, we were thinking, well, we would like to work with someone on kind of like the lore development and help with like the storytelling and the narrative. And so, Liam had reached out and said, hey, I know someone who, might be really interested. Like, we'd love to get you guys in touch. And it just happened to be Andy. And so, we kicked off a meeting with Andy and, really hit it off. He loved kind of like the possibilities that working on this project opened up, not just from like having immense creative freedom to express, but also in this nascent space, right? And so like he was very very charged about when we were talking about kind of like co-creating with the community and kind of like digital ownership and delivering these NFT comics and all of this stuff. So yeah, really just kind of hit it off.
That's awesome. Like, and now is your background in comics? Because this is not, I want to make it clear again to everyone watching, like, you don't just stumble into like, yeah, I mean, we're going to do a comic. And so I got some pros. Like, you have to kind of know the space. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, what's funny is like, we actually didn't even have comics on our roadmap to begin with, right? It wasn't necessarily like a part of the plan. It's just something that kind of evolved naturally from developing, the first collection.
I love that.
And so, yeah, like from the perspective of working with Andy and Ant, it was, it's a strong way to develop this catalog of IP and storytelling like pretty quickly, right? And back in the day, obviously, like, or even now, right? You're delivering a comic every week or however many pages, like 10 pages a week or whatever it is, depending on the artist.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like you're just pumping out content, right? And so, being able to craft this story, I think, was really important for us, just to provide kind of like a backbone for the universe, right? And so, with that, we've released, I think, 22, 23, 24. We're in the mid 20s of our motion comic. And
wow.
I think we've done 13. We just dropped our 13th NFT comic last week. So yeah, they're a bit staggered. But yeah, it's been a fun journey for sure. And yeah, Marco and I are avid, we grew up reading comics and obviously like love Avengers and Marvel and DC and all of that stuff, right? So I actually, one of my fondest memories, and I still have it, is like a Spider-Man card that was signed by Stan Lee that I got at Comic-Con so when I was like super little. So it's like the respect and appreciation, I think, is really kind of like what helped move that forward.
That's really cool. I like how it's so much fun now as an adult, or as adults, to have an outlet and take the stuff that inspired you as a kid, whether it was on a creative level or an emotional level, and to kind of spin it back into your own way, right? Like, you are doing what Stan did. You know what I mean? Like that we're all doing that to a large degree. I mean, if you think about it.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy to think about. And I mean, never even really thought about that. But it's like so much of what we do, whether it's through the comics or even like all the video games we play or movies we watch, it's like so much of it is inspired by that, and by that just like love and appreciation for wonder.
Yeah. And now we have so many new tools to play with that people in generations past could only dream of.
Yeah.
So are you guys planning to continue on with the comics? Is this going to be? Are you like starting? Is this a one kind of like a one comic journey, or are you spreading out and kind of building a line?
So we haven't announced any future comics. I won't touch on that at the moment.
Fair enough.
But we are kind of like working towards at least wrapping up this first season of the Nibiru comic. Yeah, and then there will probably be more announced regarding the lore and all of the story and stuff as we progress through the Nova collection.
Awesome. Let's see, we got Carrots is here. What's up, Carrots? Welcome. This just made it. Life in the Seam is saying, "Where's Marco?" And then Marco says, "I'm here."
Nice. Combos in the metaverse.
That's right. Jason Underwood says, not built, not bought, rather buy then build. Built, not bought, buy then build. Yeah, I could see that. That's a mental twister, but yeah, absolutely. And then he says, if it were easy, anybody would do it. And that is also very true. And I think you're going to see, back to what we were talking about before, I think you're going to see, Jason, like over the next few years, you're going to see the projects that are here for the longest amount of time, that last over time, are the ones that are doing what Trippy and MetaTravelers are doing, where you're taking the time to build it the right way, and difficult because we also live in a time and in a period where people want things yesterday. You know what I mean? Like
Oh man.
you
Yeah.
launch and people are like, when delivery of all roadmap? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like, well, wait a minute. Like this is,
Yeah.
it's a
And all
company.
this other stuff that wasn't on the roadmap, it's like
Yeah.
they're ready for all of it.
For sure. I've actually thought that, like, and maybe I don't know if this was incorrect or correct. I really don't know, but I have had thoughts of, like, if people thought of projects like crowdfunding projects, that I think there would be a little bit better of a understanding of what it takes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
like when crowdfunding first came out, it was the same thing, where the crowdfunding project would raise the cash, and the next day the people would be like, I haven't received my book yet, or whatever. You know what I mean? And they're like, well, wait, we gotta go to production and marketing and this and that. And of course, that's what started kind of like the what we even do nowadays with posting announcements in Discord. Like, hey, everybody, here's what we're working on. Here's what's coming up. But there is, it's kind of my life's mission in a large way to demystify the process of production to the point where people at least get an understanding of what it actually takes. And I don't think people would be really that happy. Like if they got what they thought they wanted and someone delivered stuff like on cue the next day, that project is over. Like there's no way to have quality that way.
Yeah. I mean, what we've come to learn too is, so much of the buzz and I guess fun comes from the anticipation, right? It's like that with live events, getting ready to walk into the door or waiting in line. It's like that with waiting for a comic drop or waiting for a new movie to come out, right? So there's definitely like this art to, keeping that anticipation and, keeping people on their toes. But yeah, to your point too, I think a lot of the projects that are going to really make an impact over the next year or two, especially in this, bear market, is the type of projects that do continue to build openly and transparently, right? And people are going to learn exactly what it takes to kind of like bring certain types of projects to life, whether it's a PFP project or a Metaverse project or a game, right? You see it with some communities, they're really, really, they're posting, frequent leaks, frequent updates, or even just like small incremental changes. But then the other ones building more in the dark, and it's tough for the community to kind of really know what's going on.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, where I think the larger projects can kind of get away with it. Like the bigger the project, the less they talk, right? Like you don't hear like some of these larger projects, without dropping names, like you don't hear anything. Like there is nothing. Like there's barely a Twitter presence. There's barely a Discord presence, really. And compared to every other project. And they just drop when they drop. It's always just like, hey, next week this is coming out, get ready. And that is enough hype to just the fact that all of a sudden there's a sudden act of communication, right? And it's almost reversed for other projects where you have to just be like, hey, it's Tuesday. Here's what we're doing today. Right? Yeah. Like we do a daily post every day. It's like, here's what the plan is today.
Yeah.
Here's what we're doing today. And then, we have evening alphas in the evening. Like we're always, similar to you guys, like always trying to create content and connect community to community. Right. Because I think that's the key. I think being able to say, hey, this group, right, is connected in such a way that it can start to cross-pollinate, right? Where quality attracts people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It takes time and it's not easy, but I certainly think it's important to pursue.
Yeah, and having a strong, tight-knit community, it takes time. That it doesn't just happen overnight, right? A lot of the overnight success in the NFT space, you see people just kind of hopping from project to project, right? And there are some very notable projects with very strong communities who have, captivated the audience and their community. But yeah, it, like you said, it definitely takes a conscious effort, and keeping them in mind, keeping them in the loop too is definitely important for us as well.
100%, man. Mitch says so much content he can't remember. I think he's talking about the number of motion comics.
Oh yeah, yep.
That's a lot.
Even count myself.
Full credit's due. That's a tremendous amount of content to be pushing out.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. Life in the Seam says, yeah, great point there. I feel like I grew out of video games and now I'm going back into them.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah, I feel that way with comics too, and storytelling. You know, like you get into a place where, you know, you're doing it. If you're doing it professionally, anything professionally, you're always doing it for someone else, right? And it's usually not someone else's audience. They have an audience, but you're doing your service for that client, right? Specifically.
Yeah, make the client happy. Yep.
Make the client happy, and now it's the same job, right? You make the client happy, but now the client is a community. And it's so much more. It's still a tremendous amount of pressure, you know, but it's so much more fun.
It is. It's different because they also own a piece of it, right? Like they're all kind of stakeholders in this organization together. They're invested because they want to see it succeed. They also just enjoy it for, you know, the same values that we enjoy it for.
Yeah, 100%. And Life in the Scene followed up. He said, rephrasing that, I grew out of playing video games. Now I feel like I have the opportunity to help build them, which Trippy is exactly what you just said. Yeah, totally. Yep. Marco says, side note, our first physical comic is coming soon. Free for all members who collected the first 12 comic NFTs. Awesome, masterful shilling, more than welcome. We're gonna shill that for sure. So we'll have to pitch the links in just a second here. Jason wants you to show that Nibiru.
Yeah, let me see if I can try this. I know things are a little weird here on StreamYard.
There's a share button towards the bottom, and you can if you just share it, it'll pop up in the green room, and then I can push it. Oh, dope.
Yeah. Oh, wait, it's applying the blur to it. 1 second. So
that's great.
Yeah, so unfortunate. So it does the mouth tracking. It's not going to do the body tracking at the moment. Only issue is because I have my camera on StreamYard, it won't track my body through the camera through the motion tracking software. But you got this guy just chilling. What's cool too is you actually can deck them out with sweet backgrounds. Oh yeah, they got the. Let's see if this pops up for the streamers.
Oh, that's
you know, and then you can throw whatever you want back there.
That's awesome.
Get their game on.
Great tracking.
I also like this one's just kind of like chilling in the post-apocalyptic pod there.
That's wicked.
Yeah, so it's fun to play with these. I wish my camera tracking was working, but I think StreamYard is blocking that piece of it. But it's still capturing the mouse stuff, so yeah, pretty sweet.
That's excellent. That is great. That looks fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Trey says, bring out the spite. Yeah, I don't think I have one loaded up here. That's a good point that I have to. For those who don't know, spite is part of our lore. It's kind of like the nemesis creature or species from the collection. And so just a little backstory on kind of like the lore behind the Nibiru, right? So MetaTravelers is more so like the overarching universe and ecosystem. Nibiru is the first guild, obviously, to come out. And if anyone's watched the comic, or even if you haven't, they're known for their ability to conjoin with another species, whether it be like a human or another Nibiru. And so, you know, their planet is kind of caught in between these two like vortices, right? So very, you know, different types of terrain, a lot of different ravaged or turbulent types of terrain. So they've grown to kind of adapt to these different environments, right? And so the Spite actually, instead of forming a symbiotic partnership, they actually start to take over the host, and is more of like a parasitic type of relationship, right? And so, we have the Spite collection, or the Spite skin, which is one of the traits in the Nibiru. And so, yeah, that's what Trey is referencing there.
Yeah, submit to the Spite.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right. Mitch says Trey's having this Spite cult with 24 hours. That's awesome.
Yeah, we got a little Spite cult brewing.
That's wicked, man. So you've got the comic, as Marco mentioned, the physical comic is coming out soon. Is there anything else coming out on the horizon that we should look out for?
Yeah, so we are in the testing phase of our character integration. So anyone who owns a Nibiru, you can log into LeapN. I think the older version without the updates is in the production server, but we have the newer version on our internal server, which should be pushed soon, where you can essentially log in with your MetaMask, pick your Nibiru, and or pick through your category of Nibiru, and essentially play with it in world. And this is an Unreal Engine based world. Full 3D environments. It's streamed through the browser, right? And it's also multiplayer experience. So that's the first thing coming up soon. Next, we also have our in-game fighting mechanics, which this is a fun story too. It kind of evolved through the community, where we decided to just add simple kick and punch, where you could beat up NPCs or other players. And so the community literally just ran with it. Like, we just put in the most basic mechanics, and everyone started forming meetups, on Friday night called Fight Night. And so they found a little circle, and it's like, well, if you step in the circle, then the fight starts once two people step in. And then if someone exits, they lose, and the first person to knock the other person out wins. And they had their own timers and scorekeepers, and a whole judging panel and everything. And so we decided, hey, like, they love this. Why don't we kind of expand on these mechanics and make it something a little more fun, right? So the next round includes, some grappling mechanics, dodging, parrying, block, all the fun stuff. Yeah, so definitely adding like a little bit more of an advanced fight mechanic, and also this like spectator mode. So that's cool. That's kind of like coming up as well. Yeah.
So you're not busy at all then. Got it.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to pace ourselves. Yeah.
It sounds like you guys have plenty.
On top of that, yeah, full production on the next collection. So plenty to keep our days going.
Awesome. Metanaki is here. He says, "Do you have time to talk about your overlord and savior?"
Yeah. Shout out Metanaki. He owns one of our legendaries. So there's, I think, 7 of them out of the whole, almost 8K collection, right? And so super rare. The Overlord's pretty awesome. It has these like majestic horns and like this gold plated and titanium chest plate. Super cool looking. Yeah.
Oh, dude, that sounds great. And Trey says, Hardy LaBelle killing it with a game development.
Yeah.
And then he says, when Nova.
Yeah. Another shout out to another, very, very dedicated and awesome team member too. Hardy has been crushing it on the head of gaming. Like, we brought him in, it's been a couple months now. But his game design and ideas that he brings to the table are awesome. So yeah, if anyone hasn't heard of him, formerly with Bungie, worked on SOCOM, the original Halo 2, other cool stuff. I mean, I think worked as a consultant on Fortnite, some really dope game experience there. I mean, is a veteran game developer for sure. So really happy to have him on board. Let's see. Trey says when Nova, yeah. TBD or TBA, sorry. Yeah, we're still keeping that one hush hush, but for anyone who has been tracking the progress, we have definitely made some really good progress on the traits. A couple base characters knocked out, and we have some full outfits actually. So yeah, we're definitely moving along on that note.
I love it. That's so good to hear. So where can everybody reach out to you? Where's the
Yeah.
best place to get into this project if they're just hearing it for the first time?
Yeah, there's a few ways. Like if you want to connect with the community, attend really fun, metaverse events and that kind of stuff, head into the Discord, discord.gg/MetaTravelers, all one word, and just go through the typical kind of like CAPTCHA and bot kind of screening. But once you get in, if you check like the announcements or meta chat or events page, you'll see most of like what's going on. And we also usually have in the upper left the little events tag, so you can hop in on whatever's happening that day. And then if you want to stay up to date on the news, it would be Twitter. Twitter would be the place to go. Yeah.
Awesome. Trippy, so good meeting you, dude. I mean,
Yeah,
MetaTravelers it's incredible. I really love what you guys are doing. So everybody, if this is your first time here in MetaTravelers, go check out their Discord, go check out their Twitter. Also go check out their website. It's just metatravelers.io. So I'm sure you can find all the links to all those different places there as well, right? So
yeah.
Go check it out, because I think this project is going to be here for the long term. And they're building in the time in which they need to build, which is like a bear market. They're not running away. They're here. And they're just grinding like a good project and a good company and good founders should, you know what I mean? And so Trippy, man, thank you so much, dude.
Thank you, Todd. Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks to everyone who came out. Honestly, like the community is what makes this worth it, right? Like we're all in this together. So you can reach out to me personally, reach out to any of the team. Like, yeah, we're happy to be here and happy to be kind of like experience all of this together.
Absolutely, man, for sure. And for all of you out there, I just want to take a moment and say thank you guys so much for showing up. I really appreciate it. We do this for you guys. All we do every night is try to bring the best projects together to grow this community. So if you like what you see, please subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that stuff I'm supposed to say, because honestly, it really does help us support your favorite project, your favorite founding team. And also, for those that may be watching this for the first time, after we do these shows, we usually hop into the Adult Fantasy Discord. We have an after party. We play games, community stuff, and usually it involves me getting my butt kicked, but that's okay. I appreciate it. It's always fun getting your head blown off by somebody who cares about you.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys. Thanks everybody. With that, we will see you next time. Until then, take care. God bless.